Sleepy town settled for the night, where every lawn is tailored just right. And it's about time that the back porch light comes on. At that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street.
Do you hear that?
Very nice.
ASMR for you.
Give me some more. Give me ASMR more.
I had no coffee, so this is the closest thing I can think of that's gonna just
Oh man. That was lovely.
How are ya?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm excited about this episode.
Dude, we've been wanting to talk about this for a while. And you're the one who brought this up to me. I didn't know this existed.
Really?
Yeah. Like way early on when we started thinking about topics. You're like, did you know? I was like, I did not.
Yeah. We're gonna get into it. Apparently, okay. So should we just jump right in? Okay, well, first of all, hey, witch, hey.
Hey, witch, hey.
Just bypassed all that. Hey, witch, hey. I'm Justina.
I'm Christina.
Welcome to Magnolia Street.
Your one and only one-stop shop for practical magic fandom and practical magic inspired music.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a composer by the name of Michael Nyman. For those of you who are not familiar with Michael Nyman, who he is, what he has to do with the whole world of practical magic, he's an English composer who was actually hired to compose the score for the film Practical Magic, but his score was ultimately scrapped and replaced by the score as we now know and love it by Alan Silvestri, or as Christina likes to call him, Alan Menken.
Yeah.
And the original pressings of the Warner's soundtrack CD featured 2 cues from Nyman's rejected score. When he was replaced by Alan Silvestri, the soundtrack was repressed and Nyman's cues were replaced by 2 shorter Silvestri cues. Both versions can be found in used CD bins. And I think there's some floating around on the interwebs. If you could probably find one, I don't know, eBay or I don't know.
Yeah.
They're still around, apparently. Yeah,
floating around out there. Check the back of your CDs, I guess.
Yeah.
Might be on there.
So there's 2 different versions of the soundtrack floating out there, apparently. One with Michael Nyman's cues, one with Alan Silvestri's cues. I don't know if there's one with both of their cues on there.
I wonder how long Michael Nyman's was floating around before they redid everything.
I don't think that long. Yeah.
That sucks.
Because they released it for the film, I guess, in promotion for the film. I don't remember how soon before the film came out that they made the switch, but there was already, Michael Nyman's stuff was already floating around out there on the practical pressed on the Practical Magic soundtrack. And then at the last minute, it's like, nope, sorry, we're gonna go with somebody else. So kind of fucked up, but
I hope he was paid regardless.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, talk about a low blow and getting the short end of the stick after doing all that work for this film. But I guess that's showbiz, you know?
Showbiz. That's Hollywood, kid.
It is what it is. I really do feel bad for the guy, but after listening to the score that he wrote for Practical Magic, I can see why they ultimately ended up switching gears.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. You said that you have not heard about this rejected film score until I told you. So have you heard it at all? Have you YouTubed anything since I told you?
I just listened to the thing you linked on here, and I think I listened to it a long time ago, and immediately I was like, ugh, that doesn't fit.
Not really at all.
Not really. Practical Magic.
And we kind of get into it a little bit later about why it might not fit.
Okay.
Because there was a method that he used to, I guess, send filmmakers his music, filmmakers that would request music, I guess, for films that might be a little okay, well, now I can see why.
Okay.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about the clip on YouTube. So if you guys want to go listen to this, it's titled Michael Nyman Rejected Music for Practical Magic. I know, it's
shady.
The big rejection stamp.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was uploaded by an account called Minimal Effort on May 26th, 2019. So pretty recently.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 20-minute film score. So I guess like the whatever he scored for the film in its entirety. I'm not sure if there's
Okay.
more, but this was a 20-minute score, and they added a description under the video, and it says, a 20-minute suite of my personal favorite selections from Michael Nyman's rejected score to the 1998 film Practical Magic. Although he had written over an hour's, okay, so he wrote an hour's worth of music. Although he had written over an hour's worth of music for the film, all of it was cast aside shortly before release at the behest of Warner Brothers executives and replaced with a score by Alan Silvestri. Some of the pieces found their way into other Nyman works, including the soundtrack for the film Ravenous, a commission for Daimler Chrysler AG entitled Dance of the Engines, a 2009 collaboration album with soul singer David McAlmont called The Glare, which we're going to talk about a little later, and most recently his Symphony No. 12. All of this music was performed by the Michael Nyman Orchestra and recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's there. If you guys want to go listen to it, we will link it in our show notes. Let us know what you think.
It's very it's very peppy. What's the word? Is it like staccato? Like
Yeah.
like not flowy like Alan's. And to write an hour long, I'm wondering if there were different sections they could have like used this little bit here and used this little bit here.
Right.
But it's just ultimately got scrapped.
You know what? I was kind of getting more of like, not rom-com kind of vibe, but kind of like a quirky kind of film. It kind of like had more of like a,
Like a hallmark.
yeah, like it definitely was not the vibe. It was not the vibe. I could see
Okay.
why they scrapped it the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what we know, after you guys, okay, so here's what I want you guys to do listening in right now. I want you to pause this podcast. I want you to go listen to the score. Okay, it's about 20 minutes long. Just go listen to it. Even if you don't listen to the whole thing through, just kind of skim through it, kind of get a vibe. Okay?
You can put the music on behind our conversation.
Exactly. All right. So yeah, do that if you want to as well. But knowing what you know now, after you listen to it, knowing what we know now, and coming to know and love Alan Silvestri's score for the film over the past 25 years. It's kind of hard to imagine the film with any other score,
Yes.
right? I personally feel that Nyman's score kind of lacks the whimsy and magical elements that Silvestri lent to the film. In this aspect, I think the head honchos at Warner Brothers made the right call here.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. So, however, that's not to say that Nyman's score brings any kind of pain to the ears in any way. It's not bad. It's just different and just not right for this project. So I wanted to use this episode as a means to give Michael Nyman's work a bit of a spotlight and do a little bit of a big deep dive on his life and career, and also chat a bit more about this composition kerfuffle,
Yeah.
what went wrong, how he felt about it, but also chat about some of his other notable works and accomplishments. He's a great composer in his own right, and even though his work ended up on the cutting room floor for this film, it still begs to be acknowledged and discussed.
Sure.
Okay, so before we dive into the Practical Magic rejected film score, let's talk about the life and the work of Michael Nyman. Who is he? What else did he do? Christina, take it away. Tell us a little bit about him.
Michael Nyman. All right. So Michael Lawrence Nyman is part of the CBE, which is the Order of the British Empire. So is he a Sir? Like a Sir Michael Nyman?
So he would have been knighted, I guess?
Maybe.
I have no idea. I didn't even know what CBE meant until you just said that.
He's an Aries. He was born on March 23rd, 1944. He's an English composer, pianist, librettist, musicologist, and filmmaker. He is known for numerous film scores, many written during his lengthy collaboration with the filmmaker Peter Greenaway, and his multi-platinum soundtrack album to Jane Champion's The Piano. He had written a number of operas, including The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. I've heard of that one.
Really?
Never seen it. Yeah. Letters, Riddles and Writs, Noises, Sounds and Sweet Airs, Facing Goya, Man and Boy Dada, Love Counts, and Sparky, Caged and Beyond. He has written 6 concerti, 5 string quartets, and many other chamber works, many for his Michael Nyman Band. He is also a performing pianist. Nyman prefers to write operas over other forms of music. So he was born in Stratford, London, to a family of secular Jewish furriers who immigrated from Poland. Nyman was educated at the Sir George Minot Grammar School, Walthamstow. He studied from 1961 until 1967 at the King's College in London and at the Royal Academy of Music until 1967 with Alan Bush and Thurston Dart, focused on piano and 17th century Baroque music. He won the Howard Carr Memorial Prize for his composition in July 1964, and in 1965 and 66, Nyman secured a residency in Romania to study folk song supported by the British Council bursary. What's a bursary?
I don't know, but like in college, I know a bursary. Isn't it somebody who like collects the money for like the courses?
Oh, okay.
That's what I think, because like I remember going to like see my brother in Savannah, and my mom would be like, "You have to go see the bursary today." Like,
What? All right.
I don't know
Like
this
the tax
thing.
collector.
Yeah, I don't know this fancy college terminology.
All right.
What is a bursary? It's the treasury of an institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just call it that.
Right?
The treasurer.
So fancy.
All right. Justina, tell me a little about his career, please.
Okay, so his work as a music critic spanned between 1968 to 1976. Nyman says he discovered his aesthetic by playing the aria Madamina Il Catalogo è questo from Mozart's Don Giovanni on his piano in the style of Jerry Lee Lewis, which
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which, quote, dictated the dynamic, articulation, and texture of everything I've subsequently done, end quote. It subsequently became the base for his 1977 piece, In Re Don Giovanni.
Very good.
There it is. In 1969, Nyman provided the libretto of Harrison Birtwistle's opera Down by the Greenwood Side and directed the short film Love, 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 based on the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. He then settled into music criticism, where he is generally acknowledged to have been the first to apply the term minimalism to music. In a 1960 article in The Spectator magazine about the English composer Cornelius Cardew, he wrote introductions for George Friedrich Handel's Concerti Grossi, Opus 6, and interviewed George Brecht in 1976. His 1976 album Decay Music was produced by Brian Eno. In 1974, Nyman published an influential book on experimental music called Experimental Music, Cage and Beyond, which explored the influence of John Cage on classical composers.
And founding of the Campiello Band and collaboration with Peter Greenway. This was 1976 to the 1990s. So in the 1970s, Nyman was a member of the Portsmouth Sinfonia.
I like that word.
Sinfonia?
Maybe.
Sinfonia, the self-described world's best orchestra. He was the featured pianist of the orchestra's recording of Bridge Over Troubled Water on the Martin Lewis-produced 20 Classic Rock Classics album, on which the Sinfonia gave their unique interpretations of the pop and rock repertoire of the 1950s through the 70s. In 1976, he formed the Campiello Band, which became the I feel like I'm saying that like Lucy and Ricky. How do you say Campiello? Campiello, which became the Michael Nyman Band for a production of Carlo Goldoni's Campiello.
Lots of Italian names here.
Yeah, you did this on purpose, didn't you, Carubia?
Yeah, I did.
Originally made up of old instruments such as rebecs, and this is a bowed string instrument of the medieval era and early Renaissance, and shawms, and this is a conical bored double reed wood instrument made in Europe from the 12th century to the present day, alongside more modern instruments like the saxophone to produce as loud a sound as possible without amplification. The band later switched to fully amplified lineups for the string quartet, 3 saxophones, trumpet, horn, bass trombone, bass guitar, and piano. One of his earliest film scores was the 1976 British sex comedy Keep It Up Downstairs, followed by numerous films, many of them European art films, including 11 directed by Peter Greenaway. Nyman drew frequently on early music sources in his scores from Greenaway's film Henry Purcell in The Draughtsman's Contract, 1982, The Cook, The Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, 1989. He wrote settings to various texts by Mozart for Letters, Riddles, and Writs, part of Not Mozart. In 1987, Nyman composed the opera Noises, Sounds, and Sweet Airs for soprano, alto, tenor, and instrumental ensemble based on Nyman's score for the ballet La Princesse de Milan and the opera The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, 1986, based on the case study of Oliver Sacks and 5 string quartets. He also recorded pop music with the Flying Lizards, a version of his Bird List from the soundtrack to Peter Greenaway's The Falls in 1980, appears on the album Fourth Wall as, quote, Hands to Take.
So in the 1990s, he composed Ariel songs for soprano and band. In 1993, MGV, the Musique à Grande Vitesse for band and orchestra, concertos for saxophone, piano, based on the piano score, violin, harpsichord, trombone, and saxophone and cello recorded by John Harl and Julian Lloyd Webber. In 1991, Nyman composed the Michael Nyman Songbook based on poetry by Paul Celan, Arthur Rimbaud, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and William Shakespeare. In his 6 Ceylon songs off this collection were composed for Ute Lemper, with whom he recorded the album. Ute Lemper also performed in the 1992 concert film of the same name, directed by Volker Schlondorf. In 1993, Nyman's popularity increased after he wrote the score to Jane Campion's award-winning 1993 film The Piano. The album became a classical music bestseller with over 3 million copies. His soundtrack won an Ivor Novello Award, Golden Globe, BAFTA, and American Film Institute Award. He was nominated for a British Academy Award and a Golden Globe. He produced the soundtrack for the silent film Man with a Movie Camera, which largely reworked material he wrote for the soundtrack of the 1996 video game Enemy Zero. His foray into Hollywood were Gattaca in 1997, Ravenous in 99.
Gattaca is so good. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I've never.
Ethan
even
Hawke is
heard
in
of
it. Freaking amazing.
What is it about?
It's about like a not post-apocalyptic, futuristic government.
Okay.
And the only scene I remember is Ethan Hawke has to impersonate somebody else. But this
Okay.
person is like 3 inches taller than him. So he undergoes some kind of surgery to make his shins longer so he's taller. That's the only thing I remember. But Gattaca is like your DNA, like the letters of the DNA strand. So it had to do with some sciencey shit.
Oh, got it. Okay. I could use that operation.
Recommended.
the operation? Never heard of that movie. That sounds fascinating. Do you remember the music at all from it? What it
Oh
sounded
no,
like?
I was in like 8th grade.
Okay.
It was it was one of those movies she put on in science class.
Okay. All right. So he also busted into the Hollywood scene with The End of the Affair, a movie in 1999. And Gattaca was also nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Music. In 1999, Nyman created a group called Foster's Social Orchestra, which specialized in the work of Stephen Foster. One of their pieces appeared in the film Ravenous, and an additional work not used in the film appeared on the soundtrack album.
So from 2002 to 2005, he was a composer in residence at Badisches Stadttheater in Karlsruhe, Germany. I tried to write it phonetically. It is what it is. He composed the music for the children's television series Twitch, which is based on books written and illustrated by Pat Hutchins. In October 2009, Nyman released The Glare, a collaborative collection of songs with David McAlmont. The album, recorded with the Michael Nyman Band, finds McAlmont putting lyrics based on contemporary news stories to 11 pieces in Nyman's music, which draws from different phases of his career.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little later on, but he actually used one of the discarded tracks from the Practical Magic, the original score that Michael Nyman did. He uses one of those pieces and put lyrics to it.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to talk about that later on.
Okay. In 2012, he made a soundtrack for the film Every Day. Keith H. Yu in 2012 commissioned Nyman to write a 26-minute piano quartet in 4 movements titled Through the Only Window. It premiered at the gala dinner for his father Yul Byung's photographic exhibit Through My Window in the Tuileries Garden of the Louvre in Paris on the 25th of June 2012. The work had been recorded by Nyman Quartet in the Abbey Road Studios and has been released on Nyman's record label.
So a little bit about his personal life. He was married to Ayette Nyman. Is this French? Ni Tume? Is that how you would say?
Yeah, Ni Toomey means her maiden name was Toomey.
Is that what that means?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of that word before. So with whom he has 2 daughters, Molly and Martha. His first string quartet quotes the Unchained Melody. You know that song from Ghost that everybody knows? Spinning that pottery?
Is the Righteous Brothers.
Yeah. So it's in homage to Ayette, who appears in Greenaway's film The Falls, for which he also composed music. Molly is also a composer, and in collaboration with Harry S. Scott, has written several film scores, including The Road to Guantanamo by her father's frequent collaborator, Michael Winterbottom. Martha is a development researcher for the BBC. In 2005, Nyman reported that he had been a supporter of Queen's Park Rangers FC for 33 years. And some of the honors that he's received, he was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, like you were saying before, the CBE, in the 2008 birthday honors. So I guess he wasn't knighted. He was just appointed commander. I don't know what the
Okay.
rank is there.
Queens Park Rangers is a professional football club, like
Okay.
soccer.
Got it.
Okay.
So he was awarded an honorary doctorate, a DLitt, from the University of Warwick on the 30th of January 2007. At the degree ceremony, the University of Warwick Brass Society and Chamber Choir, conducted by Paul McGrath, premiered a specially composed procession and recession fanfare by Nyman. In 2015, he was awarded the Golden Duke for Lifetime Achievement, the special award of the 6th Odessa International Film Festival.
So he's very well regarded.
Yeah, for sure.
Impressive.
Yeah.
So besides his compositions, Nyman is also a filmmaker, having made over 80 films. He first shot in 1968.
This credits list is extensive. However, I'm not sure if I have heard of anything on this list, but we will link all of these in our show notes. So if you want to just tell us a little bit about some of the music, I guess that he reused a lot of his like scores for like different things. So
Okay. Yeah, some of them, like this list is big, so I'm not even going to read all of them.
right.
So it says, firstly, Nyman's The Heart Asks Pleasure First from the Piano is the music on which Italian rock noir band Belladonna's song Let There Be Light is based, released in December 2010, and the track features Michael Nyman playing piano himself. Nyman's The Heart Asks Pleasure First from the Piano was used as backing music for one of the bank advertisements for Lloyd's TSB broadcasts on television. It also has been featured in episodes of 2020. Music from Ravenous has been used at least once on WFYI across Indiana in segments titled On the Trail of John Hunt Morgan, produced by Scott Andrew Hutchins. Nyman's soundtrack for Carrington is mostly based on his own string quartet number 3. A Cock and Bull story contains music from the Draughtsman's Contract, as well as Nyman's arrangements of classical music used in Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. It does not use any music from Nyman's Tristram's Shandy opera. Nyman's music for Peter Greenaway's film has been used in the Japanese television program I Am Iron Chef.
Oh.
Popular Chasing Sheep is Best Left to Shepherds from the Draughtsman's Contract constituted the main theme of Spanish TV program
Queremos saber.
presented by Mercedes Mila in the 90s. In 2013, it was sampled for Pet Shop Boys' single Love is a Bourgeois Construct, produced by Stuart Price. This is just to name a few. Justina had probably another 10 on here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of shit on here. The only other thing that I saw that was like maybe notable was like the band Nightwish. Apparently, The Heart Asks Pleasure First was covered by the Finnish symphonic metal band Nightwish. I'm not a huge fan of Nightwish, but like I always hear their name thrown around with like Evanescence and like Within Temptation, because like they're just like another metal female fronted band.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But that's interesting. And then also the band was later granted permission and the song was released February 29th, 2012, which is a leap year, oddly enough, as part of the single The Crow, the Owl, and the Dove from their album Imaginarium.
Nice.
So, yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff on here. If you guys want his full list of credits, we will link that. It's also on the Wikipedia page. So check that out if you want to see more of what he's done. In addition to his composing and filmmaking activities, Nyman has a full international touring schedule with the Michael Nyman Band, as well as a series of unique one-off performances with a variety of collaborators. They include musicians from outside the Western classical experimental traditions, such as Orquesta Andalusi de Tetuan, Rajan and Sajan Misra, Yu Srivanas, Estrella Morente, Sane Noborakawa, Ute Lemper, Evan Parker, Peter Brotzman, Paolo Fresu, Mike Giles, The Flying Lizards, Dagmar Kraus, Sting, Damon Albarn, David McCalmont, which we're going to talk a little bit later on, and Alva Noto. I did a whole deep dive on the David McCalmont thing because he reused one of the Practical Magic songs from the original score and just put like lyrics to them.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But I didn't see anywhere that he worked with Sting, so that's interesting.
Oh, okay. Surprise.
Yeah, like what?
Cool.
I'll have to look that up. What the fuck he did with Sting?
You did so well on all those names.
I tried. So let's talk a little bit about music minimalism, because apparently he coined that term. I've never heard of music minimalism. Like, what the hell could that possibly mean?
More is better.
I think more is better. I'm a maximalist. I'm like, what is this minimal? But I mean, I guess it would be different with music. I really don't. I've never heard of it as far as like talking about music, so I was like,
me either.
What does that mean? So according to apartmentomagazine.com, Enrique Jenner de los Rios asks Michael Nyman some questions about the term that he coined. So Enrique asks, your book, Experimental Music, Cage and Beyond, is very well known, yet you are also credited with having coined the term minimal music. So
Dude,
he
I
actually...
can't hear that. I can't hear Enrique without thinking of the guy who read the Poe to us in Salem because you called him Enrique.
Right, yeah.
So handsome. Okay.
Yeah, so Nyman says, post-war experimental music always interested me, and it was easy to write a text on Cage, Lamonte Young, and their generation. Oh, well, about minimal music, I first saw Nam June Paik in 1968 in London at the ICA playing with Charlotte Moorman. It was a spectacular piece with extremely few elements by Danish composer Henning Christensen. During the performance, I thought to myself, this is definitely minimal music. And when I wrote the review on the concert for The Spectator, the editor ironically put the headline, Minimal Music.
Okay.
And this is how the term was coined. So I invented it, but not deliberately. And then it was applied to Steve Reich and also applied to Philip Glass and also applied to John Adams. Well, maybe he's post-minimalism and applied to this and that and applied to Terry Riley and whatever. To me, it was just something local, but for 51 years, the incidental use of these two words together became the customary. It is paradoxical that I coined this, as I obviously knew about minimal art. In 1968, the book Minimal Art, edited by Gregory Babcock, was published in America and England, and I read almost all the texts about minimalism, such as ABC Art by Barbara Rose. So I knew about minimal art, and I knew that there was a kind of minimal music around, which wasn't called as such, related to Sol LeWitt's ideas, but I was the first person to apply minimal to music. Which is interesting. So I guess minimalism had more to do with maybe the time period. It's saying like post-war. So
Right.
I still really don't know exactly what he means by minimal music.
We'll have to listen to whatever he referenced, I guess.
Right. So then E.G. de los Rios says, or he asks the question, you coined the term as a music critic, but do you consider yourself a composer of minimal music? So Nyman says, the term is applied to several composers, including me. I'm happy to have my music described as minimal. Historically, since I was kind of a musical historian at that time, my music comes from a tradition which started in the late 60s, which we can call minimal music. But the word, quote, minimal also has a very specific meaning, a small quantity of information. It is strange when a piece of music within this musical language seems to have a lot of information, but still recalls minimal music such as the score of Einstein on the Beach. I find it really interesting that this music was very, very reduced minorities music. In the late 60s, nobody listened to Philip Glass. Nobody listened to Steve Reich, except for minimal artists like Sol LeWitt or Michael Snow or whatever. And all this has changed and gone beyond classical music, and presently, serious rock musicians like Brian Eno are basically using ideas that were developed by Reich or Arvo Part or Terry Riley or me. See, he's explaining a lot of stuff, but I still don't know what he means, right?
Well, the person he's talking about, Philip Glass, doesn't that name sound familiar? I'm trying to look up what they've done.
Yeah. It does.
The Truman Show.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I don't distinctly remember the music from the Truman Show. I'm wondering if it has the same kind of sound and like feel and like maybe textures as Michael Nyman's compositions. I really don't know. Like I said, like he's explaining a lot of like
You're so funny. I still don't get it.
Yeah, like he's explaining a lot of like who he can compare other minimal music to, but like he's not really explaining like the mechanics of it and like what it actually means.
Right.
Like,
does he go on to maybe in the next little bit?
See. So E.G. de los Rios asks, or he acknowledges, soundtracks rocketed you as a musician, yet it's been a long time since you've made any new ones. And Nyman says, I haven't written music for a feature film in about 14 years. I don't remember what year this was posted. Hold on, let me see.
Soundtracks rocketed you as a musician.
Just read everything like Dan Rather. I'm guessing this was in the late 2010s because the beginning of this article was referencing the early 2000s, so some time probably passed, but the article itself is not dated.
Okay.
Yeah, so Michael Nyman responds to De Los Rios. He says, I haven't written music for a feature film in about 14 years. I'm very happy to have been made redundant in Hollywood and Europe. I'm very happy with the music I've made because I added some kind of value to filmmakers' work. And I'm very happy that my career started kind of accidentally with Peter Greenway, and it ended when nobody asked me to write more soundtracks.
Oh. That's kind of sad.
Yeah,
But he's happy.
But he's done so much other stuff. I mean, he doesn't
Yeah.
need to thrive in every single area of music. Like, like you got to have your niche,
Yeah.
right? You got to
Yeah.
just hone in on what you're good at. And I mean, you can try other things and
Try it all. See what sticks.
try it all.
What do you love?
Exactly. But I think he knows that, like, maybe, he's had some success with film compositions, but some not so much, which he also acknowledges. So he says, but now one director, Patrice Leconte, with whom I collaborated in 1989 and 1990, asked me after all these years to write a soundtrack, and I'm very happy to do so. I love the idea of working with him again because it's chamber music. In Hollywood, everything is so fucking big, he says. Everything is loud, everything is unsubtle, and for me, soundtracks are first of all music, and then they become film music scores.
I love that.
This is where I think he might run into a little bit of problems with that mindset, and I'll talk about that a little later on. So he says the soundtrack for The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover started as a piece of concert music, and then I gave it to Greenaway to use it for his film. So E.G. de los Rios asks, as a composer, is it the same process when you do the music for your own films as when it's for other directors? So Nyman says it is exactly the opposite. Every film director, all the fiction film directors, it is different with documentarists. They all think that their work is wonderful and they would like wonderful music and they choose me, which is great. And then they have ideas about what kind of music they want. And I spend my time trying to realize their ideas in my musical language. And when it works well. And when it doesn't work, it doesn't. The peculiar thing about music is it is impossible to explain.
The peculiar thing is this, my friends, the song we sang on that fateful night didn't actually sound anything like this
that
song. Thank you.
He's just writing tributes for people.
Yeah.
He's never writing actual songs. It's just the tributes. So it's hard to describe the kind of music you want, he says. And I, as a composer, write that kind of music within the range of my musical references. As me, as Michael Nyman, as an artist. And sometimes I can surprise myself with the musical results, as I did with the piano, but sometimes the director is totally unsatisfied with the result after seeing their film and my score. Do you think he's given a silent jab to Griffin?
He's calling them out.
Calling Griffin out here. So the process of writing music for films of other directors is slow. Sometimes it's very pleasurable, as it was with Peter Greenaway's The Droughtman's Contract, or very quick, as it was with Wonderland by Michael Winterbottom. Sometimes the music is written before a single frame of film is shot. For The Droughtman's Contract, the whole score was written before Greenaway started making the film. The whole score of the piano was also written before Jane Campion started making the film. But with my own films, it is different. I make a film, and when my editor, Max Pugh, and I start editing, we always end up going to my iTunes library and we choose one of my compositions and we add it to the film. That's a decision that might take 10 or 15 seconds. So in 30 seconds, we have added music and film, and it's always the perfect decision. So E.G. de los Rios asks, do you only use existing music? And Nyman says, always existing music, so I don't have the problem of writing and recording and assessing. So I'm thinking that this very process is what is ultimately his downfall when trying to apply his music to film, or calling himself a, quote, film composer, because so if he only ever provides pre-existing music from his catalog to filmmakers who are looking for music to fit their film, I can see why in most cases it ends up not working out, because in most cases it's probably like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You know what I mean? So he said it himself. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Probably because when it does work, it's a happy accident. A filmmaker might as well consult like a stock library for that matter, right? If they just want to like cull music that they think suits, like that maybe the tone suits the film, but does it ebb and flow with the emotions of the scene?
Right.
You know what I mean? I think when composing for a film, the music has to be specific and custom to the film, kind of like tailoring a suit or a dress to a body. Like every figure is different. Every measurement has to perfectly be tailored to each individual curve. And in a film's case, the score has to be tailored to each twist and turn and emotion and problem and resolution, etc. It's got to flow with what's going on in the scene specifically. And when you just pull music from a library and hand it to a director, it's kind of like, here, this
it's just like a blanket.
Right.
It just kind of covers, it's like a little band-aid.
Right,
It's
exactly.
not the stitches that you need.
Exactly, exactly. So the tone of the music also has to match not only the scene and the subject matter, but also the landscape and the characters, etc. And when talking about Nyman's score in correlation with the practical magic film, now knowing that he probably just handed the production team pre-existing music, they probably tried to make it work, but ultimately it just wasn't custom to suit what the film called for exactly. And knowing what we know about the practical magic film, and I think he said that this in a interview with somebody, I forget, I don't remember, we might not have read it yet. He did mention that Griffin Dunn was trying to fit too many genres into one film, and maybe the fact that the film wanted to be too many different things, maybe that's why it called for such a custom piece of music,
Right.
stitch all those scenes together, because it was so kind of all over the map. And it
Yeah.
didn't, if you put a blanket over that, like, of course some things are going to land, some things are not going to land in certain scenes. Like, that film, I think, really needed to be custom because it tried to fill so many different genre holes and gaps.
Alan Silvestri was already a big name. I'm sure Michael's stuff is very inspirational. It's very good, but I had never heard of him. But I'm still getting Alan Silvestri mixed up with Alan Menken. They're both named Alan, but still, I knew Alan Silvestri had done other like Disney stuff, animated stuff, and so much. He did so much.
Right. So I'm wondering if Michael Nyman just handed them like a catalog of music, said, "Here, pick what you want." They used what they thought could work. It didn't work. And then maybe when they switched over to Alan Silvestri, I'm wondering if Alan actually went into a studio, had the movie playing on a screen, and actually
Oh, for sure.
composed the music based on what was actually going on in the scene. So I'm pretty sure Alan Silvestri's was a custom piece of work for that film.
I agree. Yeah, it could have been like subject of price and budget.
That
Maybe
too.
they were really trying to keep those purse strings tight with Michael. Who knows? That's just speculation. But having a custom suit as opposed to something from Men's Warehouse, you're gonna like the way you look.
Yeah.
You're gonna like the way it sounds.
Right, right. I mean, it's kind of funny that we're using that analogy because, like, a custom men's suit, like the whole tailor analogy, and then the music suite, which is kind of like the same thing, but music.
Spelling.
Yeah. Just add the E on the end. But I would be interested, like, eventually, I know we're gonna dive into the whole Alan Silvestri composition at some point. So I'm gonna be interested to see like what his process was for
Me too.
putting this score together,
Yeah. Alan's version just makes me smile, and that's probably just because you can't think of anything else besides this movie. But maybe it would have been the same thing. It would have been the same feeling with Michael's just because of the visuals we're getting behind it. We'll never know. But it's definitely different. I hope you guys paused and went and listened to that or are currently listening to it.
Yeah.
Because I had it on while I was like looking over the notes today, and I was like, this is a lot. Like, I had to turn it down. I'm like, I'm kind of distracted.
Which is like ironic that, well, I don't know if he says his own music was minimalist, but like if that's what minimalism is, I'm like, we need to dial it back down a little bit. This sounds like maximalism to me.
Yeah.
I feel like Alan Silvestri's score was more nuanced. And I think maybe that's just because maybe it was custom to the film. Maybe he composed it from scratch specifically for the film and specifically for each individual scene, emotion, and everything. I don't know.
I'll have to go and listen to Michael's again because like Alan's just has, even in the like uplifting parts, it still has like the soft harp and the soft keys and the little tinkle bells. You know what I mean? I thought Michael's had a bit more percussion, maybe? I'll have
And
to go
horn. I think there were a lot of horn elements.
Horns.
too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I'm necessarily seeing horns in a whimsical cottagecore. And I mean, I know the term cottagecore did not exist back then. I'm just saying that for whoever's listening now who kind of associates aesthetic with like, that movie. But like, yeah, it's more whimsical. It's more lighthearted. And I don't necessarily associate horns to me are very harsh.
Yeah.
And I've never put horns in my own music. I just think they're blaring and they just put me off a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe a wood instrument?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a little like a recorder or panpipe. Not fucking straight up horns.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess, maybe it's all in the instrumentation. Dynamics. Dynamics are a huge thing. Maybe, like we were saying before, maybe parts of his compositions didn't ebb and flow with the scenes the way they needed to.
Yeah.
So we'll never know exactly why they ended up cutting it. So let's talk a little bit about his discography. So His discography included 26 studio albums that span from 1976 to 2008. And again, we will post the list of his whole catalog of works to our show notes if you're interested in checking out his life's work. So now I noticed one strange thing about this Wikipedia biography, the one that we just read about his entire extensive works. Can you guess what that is?
It doesn't have practical magic in it.
It doesn't even mention practical magic at all.
No.
Not even that it was, that he did work for it, that it wasn't used. Nothing. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't even exist. I wonder why this wasn't included on his wiki page. Like, even though his music never actually ended up on the final film's soundtrack. But it did. It circulated in stores.
But you would think it wasn't a huge blockbuster, but it was a Warner Brothers film that would probably look good on your credentials.
Exactly. So, I don't know. His name is still attached to the project. I'm wondering if it's a source subject to him and he just wants it scrubbed from all his credits.
I could see that.
Like, imagine doing all that work on a project just to be scrapped or replaced by the last minute by somebody else's work. Like,
Yeah.
like you were saying, I hope he at least got paid for all that work he did,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't used. Yeah, so I can see
Yeah.
I can see where that would get annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, but like that's showbiz, kid, right? Like,
That's
I
Hollywood.
can't tell you how many things I've written to shop to major label artists that never saw the light of day, never went through, and I never got paid for any of those things.
Oh man.
It's just the thing that you do on spec, just like, and if it ever takes off, then you get a cut from it. But like, that's just part of show business. Like, it's unfortunately full of rejection. That's the name of the game. Like, you got to learn to just take your losses and keep moving and keep putting stuff out there. And, he's had other successes. So, I mean, it's not like he's riding on this one project to, make or break his name.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's all right. He's all right. But he does get a little bit salty, I have to say. We're going to
All
talk
right.
about,
Keep going.
We're going to talk about his saltiness in a little bit. So, being that the Practical Magic soundtrack wasn't mentioned on Nyman's wiki page, I decided to instead search the Practical Magic wiki page. And interesting, it does not shy away from mentioning him in relation to the project at all.
Okay.
So, Christina, can you please tell us what it says on the Practical Magic wiki page in regards to Michael Nyman's score?
Sure. As we heard earlier, it was abruptly replaced with music by Alan Silvestri for the theatrical release of Practical Magic. This last-minute change resulted in the release of 2 soundtracks. Although as primarily a compilation album, only the 2 tracks of newly created material were changed. A 50-track demo, the last 2 tracks being called Convening the Coven and Maria Owens of Nyman's score, has been circulating among fans as a bootleg. The complete Nyman score runs 62 minutes, 30 seconds and contains music that would later appear in altered form in Ravenous and the Actors. So he reused that, like you were saying, as well as a bit of his stepwise chord progression theme from Out of the Ruins, String Quartet No. 3, Carrington, The End of Affair, and The Claim. Convening the Coven, though not Maria Owens, was subsequently reissued on The Very Best of Michael Nyman, Film Music 1980 to 2001. The music that uses material related to this piece has not been used elsewhere. Convening the Coven became City in Turin on The Glare. Okay.
Yeah.
The Glare is a 2009 album pairing Michael Nyman with David McAlmont. McAlmont placed new melodies and lyrics on pre-existing Nyman pieces, including some unreleased music from Practical Magic, newly recorded for the new album. Each of the songs is based upon a different news story from the year. The album received critical acclaim from The Independent and The Guardian in the UK. The basis of each track was not mentioned in the liner notes, and for the album's 3rd anniversary, M&M Michael Nyman Records offered an autographed copy of the album to the person able to correctly identify the most tracks by the 31st of December 2012.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to do more of a deep dive on the Glare album collaboration with David McAlmont after our break. But first, let's backtrack a little bit and chat a bit about the track listing of the original soundtrack, which was pressed with Michael Nyman's film score prior to being replaced by Alan Silvestri.
So as we know it, the tracks go like this on the CD. Number 1 is If You Ever Did Believe, Stevie Nicks. Second song by Faith Hill is This Kiss. Number 3 is Gotta Give It Up, Marvin Gaye. Number 4 is This Real by Lisa Hall. Number 5 is Black Eyed Dog by Nick Drake. Number 6 is Case of You by Joni Mitchell. 7 is Nowhere and Everywhere by Michelle Lewis. Number 8 is Always on My Mind by Elvis Presley. Number 9 is Everywhere by Brand Van 3000. Number 10 is Coconut by Harry Nilsson. Number 12 is Crystal by Stevie Nicks. And then here's where it gets a little differing. Number 12 is called Practical Magic by Alan Silvestri. However, it was Convening the Coven by the Michael Nyman Orchestra. And then number 13, now as we know it as Amas Veritas by Alan Silvestri, was called Maria Owens by the Michael Nyman Orchestra.
I'm wondering, so Convening the Coven, I'm guessing that score, that music that he wrote would have been over the coven scene when they all came with the brooms and like at the end of the film. And then I'm guessing the Maria Owens score is at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, and I know how they will kind of intersplice. You know, everybody kind of has a theme sometimes, and you'll hear little bits and pieces of like what we heard at the very beginning when Franny is telling the story to the girls later on during like the exorcism scene where Jillian's kind of like fading and, you know, kind of bounces around the movie.
I think it's interesting how these two Michael Nyman tracks, Convening the Coven and Maria Owens, they're very specific based on certain scenes or certain characters, right? And Maria Owens wasn't even a main character, so to have her own song.
Yeah.
I like how Alan Silvestri came in and was like, we need an overall theme for the entire movie. Practical magic. We need this music to be the umbrella over the entire film, not just hone in on one scene or one character. And Amas Veritas is also a reoccurring theme throughout the entire film. The love spell, this love story. I like how Alan did that for the soundtrack, so I can kind of see why maybe, I don't know, aside from the sound and and sonically, it's the music itself, why, you know, maybe Michael Nyman's score was rejected, but also maybe thematically as well.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree. So according to Insider.com, some of Nyman's score can still be heard on the original CD release of the soundtrack, which was recorded before the studio changed the music. Nyman said that he regrets the fact that his music exists on the album because it limits people's exposure to his work, but does appreciate that at the very least it proves his involvement in the film. Yeah, but it's not on your wiki page, bro. So, according to the Practical Magic Fandom wiki, after bad reactions to a test screening, composer Michael Nyman's score was rejected at the last minute. It was called too European sounding and obtrusive. Just like we were saying, I was like, this is kind of a lot. It was replaced by one by Alan Silvestri. Did you have any last thoughts before we take a little quick break?
Again, I could see why it was not used, and it makes so much more sense to me now knowing his kind of process. I think when we talk about like the piano a little later on, like I think he did specifically compose music for that film, that maybe that's why it worked so well, because it was custom to the scenes and stuff. But
you can tell when something is just because it was easy, you know, the decision to put that piece of music in was because it was easy.
Right. And if something does end up working with the method that he was using, just handing music off to production teams, just saying, here you go, here, hope it works. Yeah. If it does work, it's a happy accident.
Yeah,
that's
but
what I think.
Don't be surprised if it's rejected last minute.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, I think that I understand better why it didn't work out, because, you know, gotta take a little more time and maybe do a fresh recording or fresh composition that suits the scene in the movie a little better. I don't know.
I like the term, it was too European.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
I mean, I could see obtrusive, because it is the horns and stuff are a little blaring, and you know, it doesn't have that whimsical, free-flowing kind of like hopeful, wistful quality that we associate with that film now because of the score we come to know.
And our own experience writing our songs, especially the one we just talked about was All Hallows Eve, and the initial feel that it had and where it ended up, you know. He might not have had the right theme in his mind. Like, he's thinking witches, he's thinking women, he's thinking slumber party. I don't know. Like, it's just a little goofy.
Convening the coven.
yeah, convening the coven.
Yeah.
Let's clean house.
Let's clean house. Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to discuss a Michael Nyman interview that might give us a little insight into his rejected Practical Magic film score. We'll also learn that Practical Magic was not his only rejected film score.
Yeah, like we said before, one person's trash is another person's treasure. Recycle, reduce, reuse. We're going to tell you all about that indie singer-songwriter who repurposed one of Nyman's rejected Practical Magic compositions and gave it new meaning and new life through a magical collaboration with Mr. Nyman himself.
Nice. All this and more. Stick around. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Magnolia Street Podcast. All right, guys, we're going to do our card pull. Welcome back. Justina's got her deck. She's taking a sip. I'm going to take a sip.
We're ready. You ready?
Yes.
Tell me when to stop.
Stop. Is that the Death Watch beetle?
The Death Watch beetle.
Oh my gracious.
Is it because his music got the axe?
Yeah.
God.
Good one.
Yeah, so the Death Watch beetle. Did we ever get this card?
I think we used it for the Death Watch beetle
Yeah, I
episode,
think we
but
just-
I don't think we got it.
Yeah, I don't think we ever actually like pulled it by chance. I think we just decided to read about it. But
Right.
the keyword on this card is fear.
Oh no.
And insecurity.
Oh no.
So this says, whatever you are stressing about, whatever is on your mind, whatever the matter is, know that you do not need to worry. Things are not what they seem. Rise above fear and see what is actually in front of you. You know the truth. Take comfort and solace in that. Fear feeds on your insecurities. Don't give in to these negative and unnecessary energies. They have no benefit to you. If you are having trouble and wish to deepen your connection to this card, try the following. Infuse a black candle with your fears and anxieties. Focus your light, energy, or even inscribe it. Light this candle, and as it burns, release all of your worries, fears, and insecurities. And the mantra on this card is, I release my fears.
Dude, that is fantastic. Like, what is one of the biggest fears I think everybody has? And that's the fear of rejection,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And you just got to know, even if that rejection comes at a project you've submitted or an idea, you know, it's not the end all be all. No, it might not have been the right fit. That doesn't mean it wasn't the right project for you to experience or for you to produce. This might be a Michael Nyman situation that it is good for something else at a different time. Just like Justina and I writing our music, not everything that we wrote down or brain dumped worked in that song. So we used it later. It might have worked in another song, another spot in a song.
Right. Yeah. And insecurity, if you're a creator in any aspect,
Yeah.
there's always that like imposter syndrome, like looming overhead. Like other people think you're amazing, but you're the only person that thinks your own work is like, yeah, I could do better. It's subpar. It's all right. Nobody's gonna like this. Like, you know.
Yep.
But Michael Nyman has a pretty big cult like fan base, like underground fan base. He's gained such a following over the years, even if like the bigwigs at Hollywood don't necessarily like see worth in some of the stuff that he's
It's just
given
not
to
the right
them.
fit.
Exactly. And you gotta just kind of roll with the punches. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep putting your creations out there. Something will stick when it's right for the project, you know.
Agreed.
Just keep at it.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get into an interview now. And this interview was titled The Practically Ravenous Michael Nyman. And this is an interview with composer Michael Nyman by Dan Goldwasser. And this was published on March 16th, 2000. I think this article was specifically done for this website, soundtrack.net.
Okay.
So it's I guess a website just based on different soundtracks, and they interview composers and stuff, people who contribute music to film.
Is there an Alan Silvestri interview on the site?
Sure, but that's a good point. Maybe we should search that and add that to Alan's episode when we dive into his stuff.
All right.
So in this article, Dan Goldwasser describes Michael Nyman as, quote, the man who defined minimalism. He says he gave us some very unique scores to such films such as Drowning by Numbers, Prospero's Books, The Piano, Gattaca, and Ravenous, which recently received a Golden Globe nomination for his score to The End of the Affair. Goldwasser said, I had a chance to talk with Michael earlier when he was visiting Los Angeles for the Golden Globes. So Dan asks, oh, do you want to read the questions and I'll be Michael Nyman and you can be Dan.
Okay. Dan again.
Another
Here we
Dan.
go. Your score to The End of the Affair seems to be a departure from your style, usually heard in the Greenaway films, and takes on a more traditional romantic style of scoring. Why did you choose to take the traditional approach on this film?
It's a question I ask myself on a daily basis. Should I give him like this pretentious voice? I don't know. I don't know what he sounds like.
Michael, we don't know. We apologize. We're just having fun.
We're just having fun.
Do it.
In the Greenaway scores, what you hear is Michael Nyman in his own right, so to speak. Greenaway asked me to do certain things, and he allowed me to write music that I naturally wrote. When I naturally write, whether it is an opera, a string quartet, or a concerto, I'm still writing the kind of music with that same energy, diversity, tone, colors, and rhythmic ideas that you find in the Greenaway scores. So that I feel like I'm just making him sound like Samantha Jones.
That's all right.
So there exists a type of continuity.
That's pretty good.
From before the Droutman's contract to the opera Facing Goya that I'm writing at the moment. Since just before Prospero's books, and certainly afterwards, my scores have, because of the subject matter, required stuff that's more lyrical. That lyricism was certainly not that apparent in the Droutman's contract, although you can find it. It became more apparent in films like Drowning by Numbers, but I didn't have to reinvent myself. No director has ever put a film in front of me where I've been able to let it rip and show all my tricks. He's a little pretentious, I'm gonna say.
He can talk.
Yeah.
Like he's got a good lip on him.
Andrew Nichol was very precise about the type of music he wanted for Gattaca. For the piano, Jane Campion knew my Greenaway soundtracks and admired them and chose me over Gabriel Yared because she thought I was one of the few composers that create
I can't unhear it though.
the pretentiousness.
Yeah, even if you read it differently, I don't think I could unhear it.
One of the few composers that could create a whole tangible, definable world through sound. But then she said, I don't want any of that Greenaway crap.
Oh,
Wow.
whoa.
Savage.
Deep cut.
The end of the affair, being the type of film that it is, would be unsuitable and disruptive to write a type of 90s, up-tempo piece of minimalism, so I'm basically doing the job that's required of me not only by the director but also by the film. Unlike a decathlete who does all the events he's used to, but is being forced by certain circumstances to focus on 3 events, and being forced to focus on events that he wasn't even interested in, and also weren't his strongest events. I think he's throwing some shade here to Practical Magic.
A little bit.
Because he mentions here that he wasn't even interested, like doing things that he's not interested in. And in another interview, I think he was saying that he had no interest in the Practical Magic film at all, like the content
Okay,
of it.
Michael. Pump your brakes.
Yeah. So he says, you may have listened to the Droutman's contract 17 years ago and then wondered how the hell did Michael Nyman end up doing this type of music? But it's stuff that I love doing, and I think I do it very well. And I do it differently than everybody else. Anyone can write a lyrical score.
This dude.
Am I giving him this tone, or
I don't know.
would you read it like this anyway?
I don't know. We should put it into like a bot reader and see if it comes off the same
God.
way.
Okay.
All right. Dan asks, would you have preferred to have been nominated for The End of the Affair or Ravenous, which some say was a far better score and more Nyman-esque?
Well, The End of the Affair was all of my own work, and Ravenous was a joint composition in the sense that Damon Albarn composed 60% of the tracks, and I did the rest. He had gotten a hold of the film before I did, and as it was his first, he was very excited by the prospect and chose the scenes he liked and wrote music. I, on the other hand, being a bit more tired and not so excited and involved, just sat back, and the cues that he didn't do, I did. It wasn't collaboration in any sense whatsoever, except for the fact that you see the composer credits as being Damon Albarn and Michael Nyman. My stuff was totally self-contained. Damon improvised and wrote his into a musical sequencer. We did work together to assemble a team of people, orchestrator, programmer, music editor, to turn it into a soundtrack. A lot of work needed to be done on Damon's ideas, which were very good, instinctive, fresh, quite stimulating, before they could become a soundtrack, whereas I, the old hand, just sat down and did what I needed to do.
Oh my God. Damn, bitch.
I was rather disappointed because the one thing I wanted to gain from that opportunity was to add something to his music and have him add something to mine. But by the time I came on board, his music was so good and self-contained that the only thing that I could do was point him in the direction of an orchestrator.
Okay.
So he gives credit where credit is due. So
Okay.
you go, Glenn, go.
Dan asks, given some of the limitations of film scoring, do you prefer to write concert pieces over film scores?
I love doing both. The film scores, the operas, the string quartets, and the instrumentals. I feel free basically to slap down any ideas that interest me. I was on BBC Radio with a snotty critic who said that film music is a form of degenerative art because the composer's not free to do what he or she wants to do and is influenced by this or that. I was about to interject. Poor Mozart. He wasn't free to write the Magic Flute because he had to submit to various low art what's this word? Chicanade? Chicanade? Never heard of that one. Shikanad, none of us is free. When this critic says that the symphonic composer sits down with a blank piece of paper and writes exactly what he wants, it's not true. There's always a question of duration. There's a question of who the orchestra is. No one is free to write what you want. You collaborate on a film score, and one of the good things is that someone else's work is motivating you. The director might give you an idea, or you might be inspired by what you see on the screen. I'm glad I'm not a full-time composer. I think it might drive you mad. I'm happy with my life doing both. There are certain types of films I would love to get my teeth into. A bizarre action film where I can use all that type of driving music.
What happened to Practical Magic?
The burning question. What happened with Practical Magic was that I wrote the best score I think I've ever written for a film that engaged me not at all. He fucking said that! Damn! Well, gee, do you think the fact that maybe his heart wasn't in it had anything to do with why?
No, that couldn't be it.
You think, like, a bigwig, like, head honcho at a movie studio is not gonna, like, call bullshit when he sees it? I'm sure all those studio execs, you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah, it's like, you did the project, but not the assignment. Like, that's totally different, Michael. We can tell you did it just to get it done.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah. So, it engaged him not at all, he says. It's a miracle how my relationship with Griffin Dunn and his encouragement to write a particular kind of score brought out a score for me that did all of the things that I wanted it to do. That he wanted it to do, not what the directors of the film wanted it to do. It had the new Nyman lyricism and some very wild Greenaway kind of stuff. It had a lot of irony. It was very sexy, it was humorous, it had some sleazy music, and it had some scary music. Do you think he's like talking about like sleazy like Jimmy scenes?
Or sleazy like sexy Jillian scenes?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll never know. So he says, in terms of range, it was very diverse. In terms of quality, it was very high quality. But when it was shown to the head honcho at Warner Brothers, the film had a lot of problems as a film. The narrative didn't make sense. And Lorenzo de Bonaventura took one look at it and said, this score has got to go. Not realizing, of course, that I had 6 weeks to work on the score and they had 2 years to work on the film. So I was the whipping boy. It was a very curious situation when there were two soundtracks for the film being composed simultaneously, my score and the songs. I was confident that my score was the score that Griffin wanted and was the score that was going to make the film a success. I'm not saying that there weren't other inherent problems with the score that couldn't have been overcome with a bit of remixing, but why did they ask me to do it, and why did Griffin ask me to do it this way for a film that had nothing to do with American vernacular? Do you understand what he means by saying that the film has nothing to do with American vernacular?
I don't know.
What does that even mean?
I could have used a bit of remixing. Do you think in his mind, Alan's was not going to resonate with American audiences enough?
I don't know.
Which
is ironic because didn't one of the critics say Michael Nyman's was too European sounding?
Yeah. If anybody knows or anybody has an insight, what does that mean for a film that had nothing to do with American vernacular?
Oh, he says it wasn't an American film score. It wasn't a Hollywood soundtrack, and it had a lot of irony to it. I didn't think that it would rescue the film because I think the film, with all due respect to Griffin, he was pulled in too many directions simultaneously. I think my score would have at least made it feel very different. There's some gorgeous music in that score, which alas will never be heard. So it seems here, even though, like, I'm sure Griffin didn't make the final decision about the music, so it wasn't really Griffin's fault. So I think it seems like he's saying, all due respect to Griffin, him and Griffin might still have a pretty good relationship, or at least they still hold each other in very high regard. I don't think there was any like salt in the wound, any bad blood between them as a result of his score getting rejected.
Yeah, it sounds like he understands that maybe a lot was expected of Practical Magic, and you know, Griffin had his voice in it, Robin had her voice in it, and it really is, like the critics say, it's a lot of different themes. It's a lot of different types of movies. So
like an episode of WMSR, it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag. You don't know what you're gonna get.
You don't know what you're gonna get.
And maybe that's what he means. Like if it was a little more straightforward and it knew what kind of movie it wanted to be, then his score would have been the better option.
Okay. All right. I understand that a little better now, I think.
All right, so Dan says, but the first issue on the soundtrack album had 2 of your cues on it.
Well, the soundtrack album was obviously recorded before my score was dumped, and I regret the fact that those cues are on the album because I think they're remarkable pieces of music, and they have no use whatsoever except to sit in the archive of the people who have the CD. It did at least prove that I was involved in the project. I'm not saying that the score I wrote was in any sense a difficult score, but it's a totally different take than what an American would do. I've learned lessons from that, but I've not learned anything from them. I keep doing things my way, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Okay, but listen, you're giving this whole interview, like, acting really salty. And then he says, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But he's still saying mine was better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
I was forgetting that he is from the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe he's got a little saltiness for American composition. I don't know.
Maybe. Dan asks, what would your dream project be?
I can't say precisely what it would be, but it would unlock the breadth and range of what I do. Constantly, I have to pull back from all that 8 beats in a bar, 160 beats per measure that I've been doing since the 70s, with the addition that since I've written all that music in the 70s, since I've written the Droughtsman contract, partly because of the piano, partly because of the end of the affair, but I think my musical language has actually grown and deepened and has more subtlety. To write the kind of youthful naivety and openness of 1981 today would actually be quite interesting. Maybe I would just sit down and write a score and tell the director, take it or leave it. Which they did. They left it, and
he has a problem with it.
He has a problem with it.
God dang.
Oh, man.
What future film projects are you working on?
I'm starting work on the new Michael Winterbottom film that is called Kingdom Come and is shooting in Calgary. It's the transposition of Thomas Hardy's Mayor of Casterbridge to the California Gold Rush with Natasha Kinski and Mila Jovovich.
Well, he sadly did not win the Golden... Is this still the interviewer?
Yeah, this is the interviewer. He's just wrapping up the interview, I guess.
Well, he sadly did not win the Golden Globe. His beautiful score to The End of the Affair is available on Sony Classical. His contribution to Ravenous is available on Virgin Records. 2 tracks from Practical Magic might be hard to find, but appear on selected albums from Warner Brothers. Special thanks to Hannibald and Derek Power for their help in arranging this interview.
So this interview, this was in the year 2000. So this was like only a few years after Practical Magic was released.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the wound is still kind of fresh.
It's a little fresh.
During this interview. Let's just put that out there.
You know what, Michael? Put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, because he said, where did he say it? How, like, those songs that he, lent to the Practical Magic soundtrack, they're just sitting on a compact disc, just wasting away for nobody to hear them. But, like, little did he know, years later, somebody would want to reinvent.
I was going to say, didn't he get to reuse them? Like, what's he complaining about?
He did. Well, at the time, he had not been able to yet.
I see. Okay.
So he probably, didn't know what was on the horizon for those songs. Like, you never know. Like, maybe it's just not that song's time yet,
Mm-hmm.
Like, even as a songwriter now, like, you never know what's gonna resonate with audiences. I still don't freaking know. But just keep putting your work out there, and someday something's gonna resonate with somebody, Something's gotta land or something's gotta stick. But he was a successful composer regardless of that soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a speck of dust.
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of his resume.
Yeah. A speck of dust. But so speaking of rejected film scores,
it
seems Practical Magic was not Michael Nyman's first rejected score.
Okay.
So on August 8th, 2020, a Twitter user by the name of Vichnevitsky tweeted, quote, though Nyman is the king of rejected scores, see Practical Magic and Old Boy, feels like a lot of cases where directors want that sweet pumping Nyman sound and then realize they didn't actually make the kind of movie that can be cut to a Nyman score. So that piqued my interest because I was like, all right, king of rejected scores, he puts Practical Magic and then Old Boy right next to it. I had never heard of Old Boy.
I think I saw the movie, not that I think it's a Japanese like anime thing.
Yeah.
They did a remake with American actors, real weird narrative.
Yeah.
If this is the movie I'm thinking about, I'll tell you what the plot is later unless you go over it here.
Yeah, we talk about it a little bit right here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So now that we know what happened with Practical Magic, I was wondering what happened with Old Boy. So let's venture down this rabbit hole. So Old Boy, like you were saying, is a 2013 American neo-noir action thriller film directed by Spike Lee, written by Mark Protasevich, Based on the Old Boy manga, it is a remake of the Park Chan-wook's 2003 South Korean film of the same name and follows a man who searches for his captors after being mysteriously imprisoned for 20 years. This movie, the remake, stars Josh Brolin, Elizabeth Olsen, and Charlotte Copley. It was released in the US on November 27, 2013 by Film District. It received negative reviews, with many critics finding it inferior to the original film.
Do you want to know what it's about?
That doesn't say that doesn't give any basis on what it's really about.
Okay, so here's some spoilers though, because I wouldn't recommend it's really weird. Okay. So I think Josh Brolin's character growing up witnesses these brother and sister having some kind of inappropriate relationship together.
Okay.
Something happens and you find out that brother is the one who imprisons Josh Brolin's character in this room and like fucks with him all the time and introduces this other character, Elizabeth Olsen, into the situation. Somehow, I don't know if they share a room together. They end up falling in love somehow, and Josh Brolin, I think, escapes somehow. And then the bad guy comes out and tells Josh Brolin, like, he gives his big bad guy monologue and whatever, and basically tells him Elizabeth Olsen is the daughter that Josh Brolin had years ago. So he's been having a relationship with his own daughter.
Oh my God.
Isn't that fucked up?
What the fuck?
Oh, like my mind was like, help.
Oh my goodness.
That is what I can remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can remember.
Okay, well, yeah, the film received negative reviews.
Okay, keep going.
Many critics find it inferior to the original film. So is the original plot point, I guess, the same? Is it the same plot?
Probably. I have no idea.
All right, so the music situation for this film seems like even more of an unorganized, miscommunicated clusterfuck than the practical magic situation.
Oh, God.
So get this. Michael Nyman was not this film's first composer, okay? According to a bulletin posted on filmmusicreporter.com on August 18th, 2012, it was announced, quote, according to the LA Times, Bruce Hornsby is set to score Spike Lee's upcoming English language remake of Oldboy. Hornsby has previously scored Lee's last feature, Red Hook Summer, which is currently playing in limited release. Most of Lee's other films, including Inside Man, Malcolm X, and The 25th Hour, featured scores by Terrence Blanchard. Oldboy is set to shoot this fall in Louisiana and New York. So another bulletin was posted on July 22nd, 2013, reporting that Michael Nyman is now taking over the scoring duties on Spike Lee's upcoming English language remake of Oldboy. The project marks Nyman's first major American feature scoring assignment in several years. The multiple Golden Globe nominated composer has previously scored such films as The Piano, Gattaca, and The End of the Affair. As previously reported, Bruce Hornsby, who collaborated with Lee on his last feature, Red Hook Summer, was originally announced to score the project. Oldboy is set to be released nationwide on October 25th by Film District. It is unclear. It doesn't specify like why Bruce Hornsby abandoned this project. The bulletin post was pretty vague as far as his reasons, like why was he replaced by Michael Nyman. So I tried splunking down Google's deepest, darkest caverns to find answers for why he jumped ship here, but I couldn't find any such answer. So Michael Nyman lands this gig and he replaces Hornsby. Then on Saturday, August 3rd, 2013, a user by the name of Dylan posted on criterionforum.org, and he said, Michael Nyman's score has been rejected by the producers. So Dylan posted a quote by Michael Nyman directly from Michael Nyman's Facebook page. Now, I tried going back down the Michael Nyman Facebook page rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Dated around August 3rd. I could not find any such post, so maybe he has since deleted it.
Okay.
Maybe he just like brain vomited out of spite, or he was pissed in the moment and then he took it down.
Gimme.
I don't know. But all right, so Michael Nyman allegedly posted this on his Facebook page. He says, Oldboy update. Spike Lee loves my score. Unfortunately, the producers, Matt Leonetti and Audrey something or other of We Take the Piss Productions, don't like the soundtrack, and despite or because of their boast that we know nothing about music, have rejected it. but at least some good comes out of it. My 11th Symphony will be called Spiked, by analogy with journalists' work, which is commissioned, printed in gallery-proof form, rejected and consigned to oblivion by being hung on a spike sticking out of the wall close to the editor's desk. End quote.
Dang, this guy is like medieval.
I'm feeling a little dehydrated because that was salty as fuck. Can you blame him? Can you blame him though? This is the second rejection. And in the bulletin that I just read you, it says that this marks Nyman's first major American feature scoring assignment in several years. I'm pretty sure the first one was Practical Magic.
Uh-huh.
And they fucked him too. So I'm sure
good luck with the Americans.
This poor guy probably has PTSD with the American film market.
Putting that salt right in the wound.
Well, pouring the salt on the wound, man. Give me a glass of water, cause oh man,
Dehydrated girl.
Dehydrated.
You're like that wrinkly being in Beetlejuice who's waiting in the waiting room.
My fingers are turning into prunes. Yeah, so some other forum members weighed in. A user by the name of Warren Oates noted, quote, producers notoriously love to fuck with film scores because scoring almost always happens so late in the game and because they still can. At this point, it's almost the only decision they can influence. The whole rest of the film is what it is by now. And the dread of, quote, shit, we have to open this, man, how the hell can we sell it, end quote, has fully sunk in. So there's an irresistible urge to exercise their last little smidgen of control, if only to punish the director for having made a film that they are now suddenly terrified of marketing. And scoring is one of those weird aspects of a film everybody feels both compelled and qualified to offer their opinion on, even if, as some apparently freely admit, they don't know anything about music. Producers who couldn't give a coherent script note to save their life will confidently declare that a score, quote, isn't working, just because reasons, which often include the fact that it doesn't sound like the temporary score anymore, or enough like the score of the last hit that they worked on, end quote. So on August 20th, 2013, less than 1 month after Michael Nyman posted that passive-aggressive rejection rant to his Facebook, Film Music Reporter posted yet another bulletin announcing Roque Banos to score Spike Lee's Old Boy. And the bulletin notes, Roque Banos has signed on to score the upcoming English-language remake of Old Boy. Banos is taking over scoring duties from composer Michael Nyman, who was previously writing the music for the film. Nyman stepped in as a replacement composer for Bruce Hornsby. Banos' best-known film credits include this year's Kahane-produced Evil Dead remake, The Machinist, and Sexy Beast. Old Boy has been pushed back since our last update to a new release date on November 27, 2013. So I'm guessing that this kept getting pushed back just because of the music, it seems like.
It sounds like the last thing to get in there, right?
That's the last task. Shit together. Yeah. So a commenter by the name of David responded to this bulletin post. He says that, well, they can't keep changing composers just like that. But Nyman is right. They actually rejected the score based on demos. It wasn't recorded. So I guess he just submitted demos to the film producers and maybe they tried it out. It didn't work. So maybe he never actually ended up, I guess, recording with an orchestra or
Right. But you're getting like the base idea,
yeah,
of a song, not a fully polished thing.
Right.
So I could easily see how they would be like, no, that's not it.
Just a demo. This sucks. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look at our Magnolia Street stuff, right? Our demos kind of sound like garbage compared to the beautiful masterpiece that Mike made it sound like. You can't even compare the two.
No.
Right?
Did you see the comment somebody left? They were like, oh my God, I was so excited to hear the new Magnolia Street in the intro. The recorded one. They were excited. I was like, thank you for saying that.
Could you imagine going through that entire crowdfunding campaign, trying to raise $11,000 based on our original demo?
Oh no. Good luck, girls.
Exactly.
And you know what though? It was beautifully done. Our Magnolia Street is so, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And guys, we really, really, really thank you for all your support, not knowing the other songs we're trying to put out there. So just wait. It's we'll make you proud, we promise.
Yeah, I mean, they funded us completely. Our followers, friends, our listeners, they funded us completely. So I don't think there's any doubt in their mind that they heard the first song. Mike made us sound beautiful. So I'm sure there's no doubt in their mind that they're gonna get a really awesome album that they're just gonna freaking love and that we're gonna be super proud of.
Yeah.
So not to get too off topic, I was just trying to compare, like, could you like imagine just trying to get people to throw money at our project with that original bare bones demo?
No.
Like, I mean, like, yeah, if you're trying to market a film based on like the demos of the compositions of the film score, I could see why the producers are like, nah, this sucks, this doesn't sound good. Like, of course it doesn't, it's a demo.
Yeah.
You know, give the guy a chance, get him in the studio, get some strings on there, make it
Get
sound
some horns on there.
some horns on there. So, you know, I totally see where it went wrong there. So another commenter named Richard weighs in, and he says, Bruce Hornsby is a pop artist and didn't know how to write a score, which requires a lot of skill, knowledge, experience, and technique. Nyman is a minimalist composer of sorts, and while he has written, quote, scores, they were just pieces of music accompanying movies, not really well done and functional scores, which is what we were kind of like saying before. Like, they didn't stitch the scene together. It's kind of just a blanket that they laid over the whole thing, hoping that it worked.
Yeah.
So the producers, he goes on to say, were clearly snobs and ignorant morons who don't even understand the first thing about film scoring, and were hiring people based on hype or what their track record was, or MP3 collection. Roque Baños is not just a great composer, but an experienced film composer who will get it right if these clowns don't mess up with his work. Baños is not yet famous here in the States because he's a recent arrival, but he'll do great work. These idiots don't deserve him, end quote. And then another commenter named Justin weighs in. He says, Baños is a very talented composer, so that means his score will be rejected.
Oh, no.
He says, according to Nyman, the producers are musically inept, end quote. So it seems that on November 5th, 2013, a bulletin on the same site was posted announcing that the soundtrack release for Old Boy containing Roque Baños' score would be released physically on December 10th, 2013, and at that time was already available for pre-order on Amazon. So I guess this was the score's final official composer, since they're already marketing a physical material with his compositions on it. But I mean, they did the same thing with Practical Magic and Michael Nyman's stuff initially, right? Until they were like, last minute, yoink that, replace it with Alan Silvestri, repress it, send it back to press. I mean, so I guess they could have done it at that point, but I guess that's where it landed. It landed on Baños being the ultimate composer for that film. One thing that I find perplexing, though, is that on the IMDb page for this film, under the soundtrack section, it still lists Bruce Hornsby as the composer for 5 tracks for the film, aside from a song called Canción del Fuego Fatuo, which was composed by Manuel de Falla and Sierra Martinez and performed by Asturias Symphony Orchestra. So I'm guessing they never updated the information after the array of composer changes.
I guess
so
not.
They just kept the initial Bruce Hornsby on there, even though he left very early on in the whole process. So what I'm gathering from all of this is that Mr. Nyman does not take rejection very well.
You could say that.
He seemed quite annoyed in the interview we read earlier, referring to himself as the whipping boy. And then again, when we, read his response on the Facebook rant he posted about this movie, his responses just seem very woe is me to me. Like, it's show business. And unfortunately, sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. Like, take it for what it is and learn from the experience and move on.
Yep.
And in his case, he was able to reuse some of the rejects from movies that, his music never made it into. Some of that stuff was repurposed and reused. So, just dust off that little turd and make it a golden nugget. And that's it. So we're going to go back to the YouTube video that we were talking about a little earlier, the one that was posted. I think it was like a 20-minute extensive piece of music that was rejected from the Practical Magic film. So I want to look at some of these comments. Despite Nyman's ability to appeal to certain studio execs, he still had tremendous success with his music and has even grown quite the cult-like following who truly appreciate and value his unique and eccentric works. Right now, I want to revisit the YouTube YouTube video that we referenced earlier and take a look at the comment section. So one of the comments says, my daughter ice skated to the first part and last couple minutes of the score. The judges absolutely loved it and scored her well. The passion of the music brought a lot of beauty to her program.
Nice.
So this comment is from Lucan Wolf, and I'm pretty sure they listen to our podcast or they follow us on Instagram. The name is familiar. They say, after hearing this score, which isn't bad, I feel they made the right choice to use Silvestri's. His score seems to fit the concept and flow of the film better, which you have to agree, right?
Yeah.
Another comment says, lovely music, but I'm glad Alan Silvestri's score was chosen for the final film. This sounds more like it would fit a magical movie for kids rather than something witchy and atmospheric, which
Totally.
it definitely has a little more of a quirky vibe, right? Another commenter says, how the music sparkles, practical magic, rejected masterpiece. I love you, Michael Nyman.
Oh.
Another commenter says, I'm listening to it right now on the back of that R4 piece. Glad Michael Nyman managed to recycle bits of this lovely score into other work. So then once I read that comment, because I kind of like hit this YouTube video before I even researched this episode, so I was thinking like how did he recycle this score into other works? So then I read the next comment. This commenter says, now that I have the Glare album, it's weird to hear Convening the Coven with vocals. So this piqued my curiosity because we know that Convening the Coven is one of the musical pieces that he lended to the Practical Magic score that, ultimately got rejected. So I'm like, how did he repurpose this? So I ventured down the rabbit hole. I Googled, quote, Glare, Convening the Coven. And the first link result that popped up was from last.fm. So when I go to the page, the header at the top said, quote, Convening the Coven. But I was curious about the glare reference. So I did a keyword search on the word glare and I scrolled down to a comment at the bottom. And a Last.fm member had commented on October 1st, 2011 that said, the city of Turin on the Glare album. So now I'm thinking, what is the city of Turin? Now knowing this song and album title, I hit up Spotify to see if it was there. And sure enough, you can listen to this entire album, the Glare album, and the song, The City of Turin, on Spotify.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the Glare album right now. So you want to tell us a little bit about this album?
All right. So The Glare is a 2009 album pairing with Michael Nyman and David McAlmont. David Irving McAlmont is a British vocalist, essayist, and art historian. He came to prominence in the 1990s as a singer, particularly through his collaboration with Bernard Butler. McAlmont placed new melodies and lyrics on pre-existing Nyman pieces, including some unreleased music from Practical Magic, newly recorded for the new album. Each of the songs is based upon a different news story of that year. The album received critical acclaim from The Independent and The Guardian in the UK. The basis of each track is not mentioned in the liner notes, and the album's third anniversary, Michael Nyman Records offered an autographed copy of the album to the person able to correctly identify the most tracks by December 31st, 2012.
So some of the track listings includes the following songs: Take the Money and Run, Secrets, Accusations, and Charges. Track number 3 is The City of Turin, which was previously Convening the Coven on the original Practical Magic score. Also tracks are Friendly Fire, In Ride Don Giovanni, In Laos, Going to America, Fever Sticks and Bones, A Great Day in Kathmandu, Underneath the Hessian Bags, and the last track on the album is the title track, The Glare. I think this is a review on the independent.co.uk. Who was this written by? Yeah, there's no author name on this, but this is under Culture, Music, and Reviews on the Independent website. So this says, a daring, dynamic duo built to withstand the glare. David McAlmont is one of British pop's most precious hidden treasures. His voice is a sublime and miraculous thing, able to convey unimaginable reserves of vulnerability and inner strength in one wavering syllable. And if his mercurial career hasn't touched you yet, here's your catch-up listening list. Quote, the song Unworthy by Thieves, Yes by McAlmont and Butler, and the whole of their Bring It Back album, Diamonds Are Forever with David Arnold, and that barely scratches the surface. Michael Nyman is in less need of an introduction. Being probably the country's most celebrated living composer, the idea of putting them together as a duo is almost too good to be true. It cannot surely live up to its potential, except that it does. The Glare is a daring project in which McAlmont has scoured the world's regional newspapers, the Ottawa Citizen, the Las Vegas Journal, and so on, for poignant, under-the-radar human interest stories and set them to some of his favorite Nyman works. The result is a kind of conceptual operetta with broad themes of release and escape. over 11 pieces performed by the Michael Nyman Band, a 12-piece ensemble consisting of strings, horns, and Nyman on piano. The singer spins first-person narratives about the lives of a New Zealand couple who found themselves with millions of dollars due to a bank error, a Nigerian prostitute caught in a people trafficking ring, a man whose terminally ill neighbor asks him to shoot him, and even the Britain's Got Talent adventure of Susan Boyle and its aftermath. His heartbreaking vocals mesh with the paradoxical, opulent minimalism of Nyman's compositions so perfectly that you'd swear they've been co-written specifically for the purpose. McAlmont, left in picture, I guess they have a picture of him. McAlmont inhabits his characters, and Nyman's band express their inner turmoil magnificently. The 17-minute finale, an instrumental suite called Songs for Tony, allows pause to take in the tragedy and beauty of what you've just heard. There will be those who find the whole enterprise dauntingly arty. Not many albums list Theodore Gericalt and Sigmund Freud in the thank yous, but once heard, you'll want never to live without it. So yeah, City of Turin, the song from the Glare album, which is just Convening the Coven from the Rejected Practical Magic film score, now with lyrics and vocals by David McAlmont, that can be heard on Spotify. We will link that below so you guys can listen to that. But now we're going to get into the story behind the song, The City of Turin, that was originally Convening the Coven. So I was curious about the significance of the lyrics and the story that songwriter, lyricist, and vocalist David McAlmont had written for Nyman's instrumental piece. I discovered a blog post that he did on his WordPress blog, which he explains the whole backstory, and he posted this on June 7th, 2010. So take us through this beautifully written blog post by McAlmont and tell us a little bit about his inspirations for turning Michael Nyman's score into this newly renovated masterpiece of sorts.
All right, this is straight from David's blog. He says, I had a dream that was Turin, a reminder that sometimes reality's randomness seems so orchestrated that my waking should be my dreaming. A blazing hot afternoon became a balmy evening as a crimson sun sets behind distant purple misty mountains. Beneath a cloudless sky deepened into a dark, dusky sapphire. Within the glories of June's Mediterranean summer nature, a world-famous composer and his band demonstrate their quality in the grounds of once royal family summer palace. In the first capital of the nation that gave the world great food, great art, great music, I am about to join the band on stage to perform a set that includes a song named after the city, a song that was inspired by the memoir of a life in it, a life that I have sung since last November, the life of a woman that I have just met for the first time, embraced and laughed with, someone with whom I have just shared an exceptional moment of quiet profundity. She has said thank you to me. I said thank you to her. She told me that she is overwhelmed by the moment. I have replied that I feel the same. She has thanked me for telling her story. I thanked her for telling it. I've responded with relief because until now, my treatment of her story has moved me, but I've been unaware of her feelings about it. When I refer to it as her story, she says that it isn't her story, but the story of many, and that my song, based on their experiences, means as much to many of them as it does to her. She gives me a signed copy of her book and removes the album called The Glare from her handbag and asks me to sign it.
He goes on to say, when Michael Nyman and I started creating material for our collaboration, The Glare, he asked me what I thought of a typically majestic composition called Convening the Coven. It had been included on the Practical Magic soundtrack album, but had been excluded from the final print of the film. I thought it very curious that such a bewitching piece of music had been treated this way, but that's Hollywood apparently. Anyway, I loved the piece instantly. To Michael's evident delight, so in his surprisingly generous way, he suggested that I write something to his criminally dismissed transcendent musical statement.
Criminally dismissed?
Wow.
Dang, he's got friends in his corner.
He does, but I mean, like,
But damn.
He's hurting pretty bad over this still.
He goes on to say, in my attempt to assess the composition's mood, I did get a clue from the title about the great coming together of peoples from the four corners of the earth. I decided, in the spirit of the other Glare material, to locate a 21st century manifestation of an awesome gathering. In my quest, I found an article in the Observer magazine that anticipated the impact of massive migration into post-millennial megacities, discussing the imminent population explosions in cities like Lagos, London, and Mexico City. I did a lot of reading, but couldn't really find the all-important emotional hook that would enable me to turn the research into verse. So I put that idea aside, but then I found a story on the BBC News website about the Spanish police force successfully smashing a Nigerian people trafficking ring in Seville. What held my attention initially was the exploitation by the criminals of their captives' superstitious beliefs, the deployment of juju charms and old wives' tales to spook the trafficked innocents into submission. The fact that the trafficking of Nigerian women thrived in cities with which Nigeria had good trade relations, cities like Seville, Oslo, and Turin, also held my interest.
I dug further and sourced a highly informative report from a studious investigation into trafficking by a Norwegian NGO that works with some of the more fortunate victims who escaped enslavement in Italy or Spain and flee to Oslo, where there is more favorable support and less indifference to their plight. The report highlighted the nightmarish journey that these women face overland, desert land, crammed like livestock into tightly unbearable hot vehicles with rationed water, sometimes no water for days. There was also extensive and sobering reference to the reduced numbers of lives that survived to the destination. It was a very powerful report, but it was Oslo that didn't really inspire my inner Glare poet. However, Turin appealed for a simple reason. Until this research, I had always and only associated the name Turin with the Shroud of Turin, the world's most famous and controversial holy relic. So the perversity of the inhumanity of trafficking flourishing on the doorstep that housed the apocryphal evidence of the risen Christ struck me as a very compelling contrast.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
He says, I then decided to read more about Turin, learning that it was Italy's first capital, definitely not its old capital, but that it was a city where 6 rivers met, a little detail that satisfied me poetically. I then logged into YouTube, typing Turin and people trafficking into the search engine. A video appeared, a short piece of footage from Al Jazeera English. It was a very composed interview by a very beautiful and dignified young African woman, filled in an elevated place with snowy mountains in the background. She was speaking honestly about her experience of being trafficked. It was a very moving interview. She discussed the promises that had been made to her by liars, the ugly extortionate reality that she faced on arrival in Turin, the violence perpetuated against women she knew, like the murder of a stubbornly principled friend. She discussed the prejudices of the local people, particularly nurses in the hospitals. She paused for tears and to compose herself. When she spoke about her friend who had been murdered in the Valentino Park because she wouldn't comply with what was expected, I became very moved by her composure and her genuineness. For everything I had read, nothing had conveyed the deep emotional carnage that contemplated traffickers weak upon hopeful young women. I had found my source.
The eureka moment came after all the reading and the research. I just climbed into the bath. I should rename it my Eureka Station. As soon as I hit the water, these words came to me. I can't go home. I hate it here. The wind gets through the flimsy things they make me wear. Nobody here wants to hear the truth of how it's been for a girl on the street in the city of Turin. I shot out of the bath and ran to my computer. As I spliced the words to the music, the melody identified itself and the song fell into place. That's like all the songs we basically wrote for Magnolia Street.
Yeah.
All of like melodies and all the lyrics and stuff, just like I would get in the shower and things would just fly at me. And
Eureka Station.
My Eureka Station, I would have to get out soaking wet to write stuff down or to sing it into my phone and then jump back in the shower and finish my shower.
That's funny.
It was a whole process. But I get exactly what he's saying here. He goes on to say, I noticed that the composition section that I identified as the chorus reminded me of Stevie Wonder's Someday at Christmas. When I performed it for Michael the first time, and I'd verified that the expression on his face was shocked delight and not outraged horror, it became the first time that I mentioned to him my detection of the strains of Motown in his music. I also found that it was a challenge to sing the song without crying. When we recorded it at Angel Studios in Islington, my friend and photographer Robert Taylor, who shot the making of pictures for the album sleeve, asked me what it was about the song that grabbed him by the throat, causing him to choke with emotion. We created something genuinely powerful, and when the album was released, City of Turin emerged as a standout favorite for a lot of people who purchased it.
They should check out that slide guitar in Magnolia Street. It'll bring you right to tears.
Oh my god. Makes Christina cry every time.
Every time. All right. When The Glare was released in Italy and began to attract some publicity there, a Turin newspaper ran a 2-page feature about the song. The issue, Isok and her book, I'm guessing that's the woman he interviewed.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a facsimile and I contacted my friend Bill, who speaks Italian, and asked him to read it to me. It was a wonderful piece because the song had republicized the issue of Isok's own story. In the article, there was a picture of smiling Isok along the Glare cover. Shortly thereafter, a promoter decided that it would be appropriate to have us play in Turin because of what we'd written. That's when I began to consider the possibility that I might actually meet Isok. I imagined that she made her home in Turin, and that was as far as I allowed my thinking to go until yesterday.
I was walking around the grounds of the venue, feeling really grateful for the things that life has permitted me to see, the places it has permitted me to be, and I had a pang of guilt. Maybe I should have gone one step further, tried to locate Isok and invite her to the show. This thought occurred to me intermittently throughout an intensely hot afternoon where things had been reasonably fraught. We hadn't eaten because there wasn't time. Instruments were melting and going out of tune, and Michael couldn't play the piano or read his manuscript in the fierce sunlight. I was dehydrated to the extent that notes were missing when I tried to sing them, and we were way behind schedule. As showtime approached and I emptied an umpteenth bottle of water, I went backstage and decided to eat an emergency banana. When I finished the banana and discarded the skin, I clapped my hands, said, "Energy!" and strode outside toward the courtyard and saw a woman clothed in a white blouse and red trousers coming toward me, smiling. I recognized her immediately. It was Isok. We looked at each other, and there was a slight tension, awkwardness, recognition as she walked demurely toward me and said, "I would like to tell you who I am." To which I blurted out, "I know who you are." And we threw our arms around each other.
Aw.
That's such a beautiful
Do
story.
you think he was dehydrated because of Michael's saltiness?
Quite possibly. But I mean, like, okay, he's got no reason to be salty anymore. His masterpiece found a beautiful, like, resting place.
A
Like,
story it was
a
meant to tell.
story that it was meant to tell. Like, this was what his work was made for. He just didn't know it yet at the
Yeah.
time when he was getting a little butthurt over, it
Yeah.
not turning around in his favor with practical magic, but it found a new life and it found its purpose and it served its purpose. And I think
It's
it's
a
such
beautiful story.
beautiful turnaround story
Yeah.
of how this song was repurposed the way that it was. And I think
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful, beautiful turn of events with that, how that turned out.
Yes.
So let's dive back into those YouTube comments because
Okay.
they're the gift that keeps on giving. I kept finding stuff that kept taking me down like other rabbit holes, and I'm like, what's this? What's this? I was like Jack fucking Skeleton over there, just looking at
Nice.
the YouTube comments. So this next comment, this says, people here giving a professional opinion about how the score is not suitable for a film as if they were producers. To hell with ya. By the way, the only reason this was not on the final soundtrack is because of the Nicole Kidman spell, Portrait of a Lady. And I was like, what? What does that mean?
What?
Yeah, so I was like, Portrait of a Lady, what's that? So,
Miranda?
Miranda? Like Portrait of a Lady. All right, so I never heard or seen that movie. So I didn't quite understand this commenter's reference until I did a little bit more digging. I think I Googled Nicole Kidman, Portrait of a Lady. It popped up as a movie. It's a 1996 British-American film directed by Jane Campion and adapted by
Jane
Laura
Campion?
Jones. Yeah, keep that name in your mind, okay? Jane Campion and adapted by Laura Jones from Henry James's 1881 novel of the same name. So the film, Portrait of a Lady, stars Nicole Kidman, Barbara Hershey, John Malkovich, Mary Louise Parker, Martin Donovan, Shelley Duvall, Richard E. Grant, Shelley Winters, Viggo Mortensen, Valentina Cervi, Christian Bale, and John Gielgud.
That's a
Gielgud.
star-studded cast.
Star-studded cast. It received 2 nominations at the 69th Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actress. Hershey received a nomination for that, and then Jane Patterson for Best Costume Design. The film tells the story of Isabel Archer, an innocent young woman of independent means who is manipulated by her friend, her quote friend, Madame Merle, and the devious Gilbert Osmond. So, yeah, I like how you picked out that name. Jane Campion! Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I didn't put the 2 and 2 together right away because I didn't, like, read all the stuff that I copied and pasted, like, earlier on in the episode.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I just, Google, like, what is the connection between Jane... I didn't even think I put Jane Campion. I think I just put connection between Portrait of a Lady and Michael Nyman. So the connection here is not only Nicole Kidman, who was also in our film du jour, our favorite film, Practical Magic, but the director, Jane Campion, also was the director of the film The Piano, to which the film score was composed by none other than Michael flippin' Nyman.
What the
So
hell?
it's all
Okay.
freaking connected.
All connected.
It's all connected. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. This is all this cross out stuff is just basically the plot of the movie. I didn't feel like we
Okay.
needed to really go into all of that
Okay.
here. But if you guys want to go check out The Portrait of a Lady, go watch that movie. I've never seen it. Now I want to watch it. I didn't know Nicole Kidman was in this. So a little bit about Michael Nyman's work on the movie The Piano. There's a whole book. This book is titled Understanding Soundtracks Through Film Theory by Elsie Walker. So The Piano basically revolves around the character Ada McGrath, played by Holly Hunter, and she's a woman shipped off from Scotland to New Zealand as a mail-order bride by arrangement of her father. Ada cannot speak. She has a young daughter, Flora. In an arranged marriage, she leaves her native Scotland accompanied by her daughter and her beloved piano. Life in the rugged forests of New Zealand's North Island is not at all what she may have imagined, and nor is her relationship with her new husband, Stuart. Look what I could do! She suffers torment and loss when Stuart sells her piano to a neighbor, George. Stuart! Ada learns from George that she may earn back her piano by giving him piano lessons, but only with certain other conditions attached. At first, Ada despises George, but slowly their relationship is transformed, and this propels them into a dire situation. Did you ever see this movie?
No.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it either. I think I'm confusing this with there's a
Like
movie with
Pianist?
The Pianist. Is that with
Yeah.
Adrian Brody?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Is this where her fingers get cut off?
I don't know.
Don't her fingers get cut off?
I've never seen either of these movies.
Neither have I, but I feel like
Okay.
I've seen someone's fingers get cut off. I don't remember
no.
which movie it was,
Okay.
but it's fucked up. But anyway, so The Piano was directed by Jane Campion, of whose films reward feminist analyses. Her films are united in focusing upon female experiences beyond the prescribed gender and sexual roles. Her female characters are united in undergoing profound personal transformation. There's a lot in this, I guess, web book PDF. There's a lot about Nyman's music in association with this film. So I only cherry picked a little tiny bit because it's seriously so much. You guys can go read this. We will link this PDF in our show notes because it seriously is a lot.
Is it hefty bitch?
It's a hefty bitch, yeah.
Okay.
But basically, Nyman's music for Ada challenges expectation in more ways than one. First, it is music unlike that which a typical bourgeoisie white woman of her time would have been encouraged to learn, or that which might be used in a more authentic period film. When Campion first approached Nyman about the piano, she expected him to fill the, quote, emotional chasm of Ada with music that would say everything Ada might say if she were to speak. In response to this challenge, Nyman made a conscious choice to avoid any form of pastiche and decided that Ada would not be one to play music from the established canon of the 19th century music. He also imagined Ada as a composer in her own right. Nyman transcribed the tunes from a volume of Scottish popular songs from the 19th century, music of the sort that Ada might have heard on the streets or at dances or in salons. And some of the titles Nyman composed for this film are as follows. So there's The Heart, Ask for Pleasure First / The Promise, All Imperfect Things, Delft Waltz, and Coupling.
But you know why this was such a poignant score for him is because it probably touched that place in his heart that Practical Magic didn't. It was about music.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So it's probably easier for him to thread into, you know what I mean? We keep using sewing analogies.
I know, what the hell? And
We've been on our spinning sewing kick.
Yeah. I was like, wait, we just talked about thread in one episode. Yeah, one of the last episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally, 100%. I could totally see why he would have he had a lot of success with this film, The Piano.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of his most critically acclaimed films that he was involved in. I don't know, did it say is Jane Campion an American director? Because we saw he didn't have too much luck with the American market in the past. I'm just curious. Oh, no, she's not. She's a New Zealand filmmaker.
Yeah. Dame.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Jane Campion.
So I guess the American market is not his shtick.
Poor
Not his
guy.
shtick. But maybe he just needs to find films that resonate with him on an emotional level. And like you said, I didn't even put the two and two together, but this film having to actually do with music, he was really to deep dive into, and he was didn't it say he was a music historian and a critic?
Yeah.
So this probably tickled his fancy, just going back into history, the history of music, and kind of just weaving it into this story that obviously inspired him enough that it just seemed like it effortlessly fit together. And
Sounds like a familiar story, doesn't it?
And when things do that, I think that's when true magic happens.
Right.
You know, it's so easy for us to get so hurt by rejection in the moment, but you got to realize that maybe that's just the universe's way of saying this thing isn't for you, but hold on, there's something better coming. You know? So I always try to tell myself that, like, you know, being a creator myself, churning out all these different things and different projects, you never know which one is going to stick. And if something doesn't work out, yeah, it makes me, in the moment, it makes me feel like a shit creator. But I know that's not true. Like, you know, we all know that's not true about ourselves. But we tell ourselves these negative things about ourselves. But if you just reframe it, the universe has something better in store for me. Maybe this isn't this specific project for me, but it taught me lessons to set me up for success with the next project.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you start asking more questions of that client that's asking you to do something, so you can make their dream a reality, right? And like you and I have talked about, I hate fucking changes, but now, you know, in the last couple years, it's like, okay, it's not a critique or it's not a diss on my work. It's that I'm not asking the right questions to get the details that I need, you know, right off the bat. It's not what they're looking for, and it's not saying it's not good. It's just not what they're envisioning in their mind. It's okay.
Right. Exactly. I know this seems really like a random question, but do you watch Dragula at all?
Like, isn't there a song called Dragula?
I don't know. It's
Dragula, burning the witches
song?
Yeah, that song. Dragula.
I don't know that song, but
What?
it's a show.
Okay,
and
no.
I freaking love this show. It's so campy and like it's like if RuPaul's Drag Race was horror.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
It's run by the Boulet brothers. So basically there's a character on the season that I'm watching right now called Abora. And so each episode it's a different challenge. Okay. And every challenge, this character, Abora, she like completely misses the mark. She doesn't even like go by like what the project is supposed to be. She completely does something else. And every
whatever the fuck she wants.
And every time she shows up at the floor show, they're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you? That has nothing to do with what we asked you to do. Yeah. But she's made it pretty far so far. I think I just saw
okay, all right.
She finally got eliminated because I think they were just done with her shit. Like, we're giving you like a list of criteria. You're completely ignoring every single thing and you're just doing what the fuck you want.
I love that.
Like,
it's middle child energy.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know, maybe Michael was feeling a little Abora about it and was like, all right, so they want this, but I'm gonna give them this because I like this better. Yeah. You know?
I'm guilty of that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Do Dragula by Rob Zombie?
What?
Dragula by Rob Zombie.
Is that the song? Is that who it's by?
Look it up. You'll know this song right away.
Okay. So anyway, that's all I got. That's
Michael motherfucking Nyman.
Michael Nyman. Salty motherfucker.
Salty Nymans.
Salty Nymans. Any closing thoughts about?
I'm excited to do Alan's episode.
Yeah.
Because we have so much from him in the commentary, you know. That we get to talk about.
Was he in the commentary?
Yep. Yeah.
He talks in the commentary? Okay.
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go comb back through that.
I have the transcript actually, and it's linked in like our side notes.
Okay.
Plus the audio, but you can just the side hatch. Yeah, with the oils and perfumes.
It's linked in the side hatch with the oils and perfumes. I love that.
Dip my toe in the jacuzzi, baby.
This is probably going to be a pretty short episode once I edit it down.
It was very concise. All your researches flowed together. It made sense. It had, we needed the context.
I guess that was a lot.
It was a lot. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could deep dive into like all the other stuff he's done, but he's done so much stuff.
Salty.
You know? So much stuff. But that's all the stuff that I could find that kind of like spun off of directly off the Practical Magic stuff anyway, you know?
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure there's more that I'm missing. So if you guys know of anything that you want to throw at us, feel free. You can email us at magnoliastreetpodcast@gmail.com and hit us up on Instagram, slide into our DMs. There's also a little thing at the bottom of the screen. If you're listening to us on Spotify, there's a little questionnaire at the bottom of the screen.
Tell us what you think about the episode.
Exactly. So we'd love to know. And if you guys do want to support the podcast on Patreon, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. That's our seedling tier, and that gets you access to our patron-only polls where you get to weigh in on what topics you would like us to talk about next. It also gets you our monthly calendar so you can see what topics we have coming up for the month. And it also gets you a welcome shout out on the show. Our $3 Lavender Bud tier gets you our show notes for each episode in an aesthetically pleasing PDF, our after hours posts if there's any extra tidbits or behind the scenes info pertaining to any of our episodes. We'll post those along with a blog post or extra photos, and access to our specially curated Spotify playlists. We have created playlists for our WMSR episodes as well as Production Dream playlists for each song episode and more. Our $5 Lilac tier gets you access to our private Facebook community where we host a monthly live stream. Plus, you'll get access to our Discord server where we host our monthly watch parties. And also on the Discord, you can join in on the discussion with other Magnolia Street neighbors via the various interesting channels and threads. And then here's the $8 Rose tier. This gets you access to extra audio visual content such as a once a month full-length video episode, unlimited bonus videos, uncut footage, cutting room floor footage, bloopers, outtakes, meditations, exclusive interviews, and old home videos from the vault, or spell or ritual videos, and more. It also gets you bonus content to coincide with our song-episodes, such as full-length demo streams of our original Practical Magic inspired music, plus lyric sheets, guitar chords, and original scratch demos, or bonus video performances of our songs and more. Lastly, we have our $15 Wisteria Vine tier. Just like a twisting Wisteria Vine, there's a way for you to stay connected with us, the Stinas. In this tier, we invite you to join our private Marco Polo video messaging app. The app is totally free for both Android and iOS. Sign up with your phone number or email, and we will help you do the rest. This is a great way to chat with each other in a more intimate group setting, face-to-face via video recording. We love to show each other our pets, our gardens, or anything else you'd like to share. And just a reminder that the higher the tier you sign up under, the more rewards you get, because you get all of the rewards of the tiers below it. You can upgrade or downgrade or even cancel at any time. So to support the podcast, head to patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast.
Yeah, and there are additional ways to support us and our podcast that don't cost you any money. If you do listen on Spotify, please give us a star rating. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us a written review. We love sharing those on our Instagram. And if you're on Instagram, we would really appreciate any reposts or blurbs about our podcast. And make sure to tag us at Magnolia Street Podcast in your feed, posts, stories, and share us with your Practical Magic loving friends. We also have some merch. Check out our Teespring. You can find the link in our Koji bio on our Instagram. And we have everything over there. All of our designs you can find on t-shirts, mugs, tote bags. But if there's a design you don't see over there that you want on something, let us know. We'll make that happen for you. But happy December, everybody. Happy post-Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a ton of food. I know we're making steaks. That's our tradition. What did you guys make?
My mom always does lasagna, typical turkey.
Salami roses?
Salami. No, there will be no salami roses. No salami. I don't know. There might be a charcuterie board. We'll see.
Nice. Thank you guys again. Come back next week. We will have a very special interview with Joseph of Grounded by the Moon about his Inner Witch Oracle deck that we use in every single episode. So stay tuned for that. Find us here every week, every Friday, new episodes.
Yeah. Come join us again on Magnolia Street. I'm Justina.
I'm Christina, and we'll see you next time.
At the house on Magnolia Street, would you go down to Magnolia Street when the wisteria go wild? At the house of magic and mystery, so would you go down to Magnolia Street?
I'm eating chocolate for breakfast.
Dude, I am so gassy also.